At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Now, of course, you have rational thoughts, but today's guest, there'll be some thoughts that are, well, I don't know, but they're irrational. I wouldn't use the word irrational, but they're going to be very creative thoughts. Normally, the show we have entrepreneurs, authors on here, speakers. Today, I've got a good friend, ghostwriter, but his real passion is writing science fiction. He's the author of 30, that's 30, science fiction and fantasy novels. He is a full-time ghostwriter and now a scriptwriter, and he holds a master's degree in physics. And amongst his works is a triskadekology. It's a real word. Look it up. It's a series of 13 books combining fantasy and science into an epic known as Maldene. So without further ado, let me introduce my friend, Mark Tierno. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Glad to hear it. So, you know, I know enough about this Maldene thing to be dangerous, but not nearly as much as the people who've actually read the books, because there's like, it's quite a bit what you've done here. 13 books that you're going to hold them up. Yeah, that's one. That's one book.
Here's a second one. These aren't the longest ones in the series, but I've never had anybody put them down because they got bored or they were too long. They just keep going through them.
There we go. It's like a Game of Thrones or the tax code. I get it. It's like it goes on forever. Okay, good to know. So we'll get to the details in a second. I want to know more because I'm really curious about how you came up with it and how it relates to, you know, your mind really, because having a master's degree in physics makes you a pretty good science fiction writer, in my estimation. But I want to know more about you first. How did you get involved in writing? What was your background?
Well, the origin of writing, that's a question that every time I think about it, I keep going further back in my life. Talk about age 13 or so. But I've always had a great imagination. I read a lot. Like every time, you know, elementary school, they have those tab books that people ordered 3 or 4. I'd be the one with the big armload of books that I'd come home with. And then sometime around 14, I got tired of every time I watched a movie and the bad guy would always spend time to give his lecture and tell the good guy what his plans are. And I'm going, I want a bad guy that just he's either going to off the guy or has some involved plan. And so that began the inspiration on the back of my head of wanting to see a real bad guy and a plot along with it. And I spent the next couple of decades sort of assembling things in my head. Part of the inspirations came from I was into gaming, you know, like the old tabletop with dice and everything. And I came up with the bad guy. I came up with the world of Maldene, and I just began adding to it. One day when my first attempt at writing is actually a couple of short stories that on my Inspector Flaatphut series that I shared with some people, and they were astonished. The first guy compared me to his favorite author, which was like Isaac Asimov at the time, and it just went on from there. When I had time to finally sit down with this epic that my parents didn't know I was planning, the time came because of a fire. What had been my grandpa's old house burned down. That gave us some money to work with, and I just began writing into it. Did I lose you? No.
I'm still here. Can you hear me? Even though you couldn't see
Now I
me.
can. Yeah.
Okay. My question was, a lot of writers I've talked to in the fiction world, they've got the whole thing laid out in their head, beginning, middle, end,
Yeah.
character development, subplots, the whole deal. With 13 books, each being like a monster like that, did you have the whole thing
I
up
had the
here?
whole thing in my head before I began book one. I had the characters, the plot, the world, which book would be for what. I had the whole thing in sequence in my head.
All right, that's probably why your head's bigger than mine. Okay. That to me is amazing because I'm imagining, what's the word count on all these? Do you have ever counted them all up? How many words?
Total word count for the entire 13 book series is around 5.2 million. And
Yeah,
that's
keep that in
including
mind, folks.
about
The average book is like 50,000, 40,000 words. You've got 5.2 million words.
yeah, for the whole series. The first book is 330,000 words. Book 13, the longest in the series, clocks in at about 575,000, which is a shade short of War and Peace. And there's a total of about 250 characters in the series.
And you had all 250 characters just like floating around, knowing where they're going to wait there, I'll come back, everything, all organized.
There's a couple that sort of added themselves as they went along. It's like occasionally I'll need a new character to be a point of view for a scene or something, and the character will sort of invent itself.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
So there's a certain amount I had in my head ahead of time, and then there's some where I'm going, I need a character here, and at least one instance, one character that wasn't going to be a long-term one, that it just ended up staying.
Okay, so there was some modifications in process. It wasn't 100% in stone.
Yeah, well, it's like, there's in writing, there's a debate. Do you write by the seat of your pants, or do you plan it out all ahead of time? I do both. Here's my beginning, middle, and end, the basics framework. But as I go along, if I come up with a neat idea, as long as it doesn't go too far out from that framework that I have set up, I'll go with it. Sometimes it'll add to the plot, add something different to it. But I feel free to add things to it as long as it doesn't violate what I have set down for the main structure.
Yeah. I've never written anything of that nature. I probably never will. But the short things I've written, they kind of flow because as I'm writing, I get a sense for the pace and when something is needed, right? So it's free flowing for me, which brings me to another thought about physics and stuff. We'll go right to that in a second. You got your master's degree in physics. You had great discussions on that point. I just love it. I was never smart enough to major in it, but I did have a couple of courses in it and college and stuff. It was lots of fun. Did that help you with the science fiction? Is it like as heady as Interstellar where you got to think, or is this like a background stuff for you?
Well, it basically means as far as any physics and science stuff in the background, I don't have to look anything up because I'm my own source material. It's stuff I know at the top of my head anyway. It's what I got trained and educated in, so that definitely helps.
Yeah. So, and as a science fiction, of course, you're allowed to break these laws. Do you break any laws of physics or bend them? Or
well, occasionally I'll add a few of my own because I have some theories of my own, which I am currently working on submitting to a couple journals on a paper.
You mentioned that to me last time we spoke. Can you spill any beans on that yet or not?
It will change half of physics.
Thank you. That's
about all I can mention right now because I want to. It's easy for it to get stolen.
That's fine. It's not the universal theory.
Yeah, I got my unified field theory, particle theory. I explain antimatter. I explain what charge is, which no one has. The little things like that.
But it's not the unified theory of everything, right?
It includes unified field theory and some other. The more I looked into it, the more I realized, okay, I got to explain this for them to take me seriously. I got to finally explain what charge is.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking to fill all the holes and went, okay, no one's explained antimatter. Let me spend a few minutes thinking about that one. And it came out in this 55-page thing that's currently being formatted for the format they like. But occasionally in my books, since it's in a high-tech future, I'll have mentions of some of that in the background, of the characters mentioning things of that sort as part of their science.
This is where we're going to lose half the audience if we start talking about black holes and quantum physics here, but I don't care. It's my show. We can talk about whatever we want. Um, so so let's get back to the books for a second. We'll talk about physics, and again, I will come back and forth because it fascinates me. But you mentioned, we talked about this years ago, that Maldene is not just a science fiction story. You've created an entire world here with its own language and culture and everything, right?
Yeah, there's actually a dictionary I came up with. It has 300 words currently. I came up with the alphabet. I got the font file for that on my website if anybody wants it. I got maps of the whole world. I got the history mapped down to the very beginning. Cultural notes. There's a Maldene tarot. I have the cards described and also how to lay them out and read them. There's a Maldene zodiac. I got notes of. I try to make it as complete the world as possible,
Yeah.
and so anytime I need, something for the background like that, I can pull it from my notes, because the more real it seems like a world, the more the reader will go, this could really happen.
Yeah.
If this is real, this could really happen somewhere.
Did you place them in a real star or galaxy system somewhere that's mapped and charted?
The closest to that is, I basically say, it's like, compared to Earth, it's like 2 billion light years that way. So it's someplace really, really far away, so I don't have to worry about syncing up with anything about Earth.
Is it in our galaxy or outside of our galaxy?
Way, way, way outside. Because that way I don't have to worry about, keeping it consistent with anything resembling Earth, because nothing to do with Earth. So I shouldn't have to worry about Earth history or Earth stars or anything like that. I can just do everything from the ground up.
Right. Okay. Are they humanoid, or are they blobs of plasma? These people you're talking about.
There's a variety of races. There are some Maldene humans, and there's elves, dwarves, there's lizard men, feline evolved, and a number of other races.
Yeah. It always fascinates me, and you'll maybe we can go down this rabbit hole a little bit, but like, there's storytelling where people can make a connection to their own existence, so they can go, yeah, I get it. And then there's stuff that's like so far out there's no connection, they can't relate to it. So when I look at stories of zombies and vampires, they're humans, but they've been modified where we don't mind killing them off, right? And if it's not humanoid, I sometimes sense this like, it's just another animal. That's why I love that Star Trek episode of the rock race.
Yeah.
Where the rocks were the silicone based. It was really interesting to me back in the 60s. But in Maldene, you've got, different species and whatever you want to call them, phylum classes of organisms here. Are they all the same stature?
Yeah. As long as you have somebody like you do have a human perspective there. So as long as you have somebody to be the reader and go, what the heck is that? Yeah. It's their first time doing that. So I have characters from a variety of different parts of the world. So no matter where they are, there'll always be somebody there that's going, I've never been to this part of the world. You have, explain it to me. So that's how I get around having to have an Earth point of view.
Nice exposition. Okay, beautiful. And I was also, I'm not gonna, you don't have to pass judgment on like the Hollywood science fiction things, but I watched Avatar again for the second time, and I was like, oh, they're all 9 foot tall as opposed to 5 or 6 feet tall. That was kind of cool to make them of different stature, because why should we all be the same size? That was interesting.
Yeah, I have a few differences here. Like Maldene has a somewhat higher gravity than Earth, which doesn't play into the plot until they actually get off planet and realize they come from a very unusual world. And the kind of thing where we're like, hi, I'm an accountant from Maldene, but I can beat you up because I'm really strong to the gravity.
I'm like the Hulk, yeah. Okay. Wow. So how'd you come up with this language? Just from the mind.
Well, even as a kid, I'd always been thinking, and apparently Ben Franklin thought the same thing, that why isn't English phonetic? There's so many different exceptions to the rule, and so I was thinking there ought to be a phonetic language. So as back in the early days of this, I just began. I did first the alphabet, going, I'm gonna make my own phonetic language, and then I just began making up words for the dictionary until I basically came up with a pattern and a style that sounds sort of like Maldene. And once I had some words, I used those to build on others. I had suffixes and prefixes, so I could generate new words from there. And I went with different meaning as a different word, so you don't have the same word with different meanings.
Right. Yeah.
And thus I have like 3 or 4 different words for, say, death, and a couple different words for strength, and on like that.
Uh-huh. How many different words in language are you playing?
I think currently my database is up to like about 300 or so.
Okay, that's not bad. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So you come out with these. How long have you been writing the series? When did you start it?
For the actual writing part of it, once I got down to a keyboard, that was about 8 years. That was taking most summers off and squeezing in a few of my Inspector Flaatphut stories. The prep work before that was like about 15.
15 years.
Yeah. I was going to school at the same time.
I know, but still, that shows amazing focus and discipline, Mark. I mean, that's like, hey, this is my world, so no one else is gonna take it. You know how many fans or readers you have?
Probably not nearly enough. I don't know.
Yeah, we all could say that, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'd like to know who's read them all.
Well, as far as read them all, because I only have the first 2 out right now, but I have a couple of people, a couple of friends of mine, one of which is basically my beta reader. I've known him for about 30 years. He's read the whole series about 12 times. He can just about speak Maldenese. Wow. And he said it was about not until his 4th time through the series that he stopped finding little clues I put in there.
Oh, nice. That's great. This is now we'll talk about ghostwriting. Okay, so folks, if you're thinking about writing a book or having someone write it for you, that was gold right there. Mark has ghostwritten. I don't know how many books have you ghostwritten. You know, you done at least half a dozen for us.
It would take me a while to total it up.
A lot.
With, fiction and nonfiction. And
right. He's ghostwritten a lot of books, and he loves fiction, but he also ghostwrites nonfiction, which is why we've used you in the past, because you're a great storyteller, and the clues or breadcrumbs, Easter eggs, whatever you want to call them, are depending on how you lay them out. I guess it's vital to getting someone to turn that page, right?
Yeah, especially in the nonfiction stuff, because just about all the nonfiction clients are people that would talk about as I'm trying to think of that one guy has a really bland delivery.
Let's not use any names.
Yeah, you've seen him on commercials, everything else. They use him because he can talk like a robot for like about an hour. And most of the nonfiction guy, Ben Stein, and most of the nonfiction clients are people that would write that way. In their, which is intriguing to the small niche people that already know the subject, but they're trying to get it out to other people, and that's where they need someone like me that knows how to get people's attention and keep it.
Yeah, which goes back to storytelling, really. Give us some of the it's probably second nature to you, so I have to think about this. But like, if someone's a leadership expert and they want to convey their leadership mantra or whatnot, how would you guide them on creating stories and storytelling as it relates to a nonfiction topic? What would you tell them? Good advice.
A lot of it comes out in the interview when I just me or somebody else does the initial interview with them and try to tease out, okay, what is it you want to say beyond just, well, I'm an expert in leadership. No, let's drill it down to details. I need specifics here. And sometimes it's like pulling teeth, but to get out the specifics and just make like a bullet point list. What do you want to say in this book? Once you have the bullet points, then that evolves into an outline, which sometimes is a glorified table of contents. So you get that, and you have your point by point. What do you want to say between now and the end of the book? And then I can go from there.
Yeah, but going from their part, the bullet points is one lesson, but then when they're telling stories, I think of all the people I've interviewed, there's been like 2 that can tell a story to keep me. I don't hardly any editing is needed, right? But most of them, it's like, well, there I was, and I opened the door, and I did this. I'm like, oh my god, give me some context or some drama or something. Do you find yourself like helping the author out with trying to give them some drama in their story?
There's been a few times when I'm doing the initial over the phone recorded interview, and I have to prompt them with a few questions, going, "Well, what happened here? Please give me some specific stories," or I'll email them back, going, "Okay, I need more stories of what happened during this clinic visit or something like that."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just give them prompts and stuff, until I find something that holds together.
Right. Do you find most books have a framework though? Like the hero's journey is a classic one, right? We have Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. There's a hero, there's a guide, and the guy is going through his journey. Do you find yourself using frameworks like that in your books?
Are we talking nonfiction or fiction, or both?
Either one. Yeah, both.
Well, in the fiction one, for me, plot is king.
Right.
Whatever it is, you can have your social message or whatever else, but if you don't have the plot first, no one's going to read the darn thing.
Right.
And there have been a surprising number of people that have violated that, or come to me as a ghostwriter and expect me to violate it. No, we need a plot first.
Yeah.
And that's what I go for first. That tells me where exactly I'm going, beginning, middle, and end. And before I even start on any book, fiction or nonfiction, I'll make sure I have that plot down, that outline down. I want to know what the end of the book is going to be before I start it.
And do you have to know what the components are, like what the conflict is of that plot, or just the underlying theme? How deep do you get into that?
Basically, all the major points that I need for what they want told in the story.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some things that I come up with, like the personalities and whatever the character come up, but as I tell him, if I'm going to say do some foreshadowing on something, which I love doing, then I have to know ahead of time what's going to happen at the end of the book, so I can drop just the right level of hint at one point.
Yeah.
Because I do that a lot in my own books, and I'll foreshadow like 5 books ahead of time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So do you like movies too?
Yes, I see them all the time when theaters are open.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you're in California. Nothing I can do about that.
Oh, yeah, the city-state of California.
Yes, right. That's another topic. So you haven't seen the new Dune yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And how do you compare that with the old one?
Well, remember, there's 2 old ones. There was some cable version. The 1984 version had me wanting to throttle somebody.
Because
the new one, first they did a good move on making it 2-parter, because that's the only way of doing that book. The only thing they got different from the book is there's a character, Dr. Leah Kine, in the book as a guy, in the movie it's a girl.
Well, that's 2021 for you, I guess.
Yeah, if you're gonna make something on a movie or comic or whatever, pay attention to the source material. They have reasons for doing what they're doing there.
Yeah, it's also
and there already are a couple of strong female characters in the book and the movie.
Right.
But I enjoyed the movie a lot. I'm crossing my fingers for part 2, which will be due in about 2 years.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. My son said I had to see it on the big screen because it was just a visual fireworks. He says it was really amazing to watch, right? Because the technology has shifted so much. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So you like that one? What's your other favorite fiction book besides your own, of course?
Well, there's a shelf behind me here that has a whole mess of them.
Okay.
I've
First
read.
one that comes to mind, Mark.
I've read the Dune books. I've read just about anything by Andrew Norton. She wrote a number of paperback-sized books, like I swear about 100 of them or something. I was reading hers in high school. Yeah, she wrote literally up until her dying day. When she was like 95, she finished off her last book, sent it off, and died a month later.
Wow.
That's the way an author ought to go.
That's right. That or at the keyboard, right, or at the pen.
Anything from her is a gold.
Okay.
And there have been the Chronicles of Amber is another one. Just I can stay here all day and just name books because I've read hundreds of them.
Right. Okay. What about on nonfiction? Maybe you don't read a lot of those. I don't know. You like nonfiction books you like?
I don't read too much nonfiction. I had enough of the nonfiction stuff going through school.
Right, and you've been ghostwriting them too, so tends to
yeah. So, and the ghostwriting, the nonfiction stuff, I try to learn something from the book, because especially on the ones that I get from you, it's like, okay, here's an unusual off the wall thing. Let's send it to Mark. Especially if it's medical thing, and so I'll try to learn an experience. There are others I've had where it's just a paycheck. It's just a paycheck.
Oh, well, you'll be happy to know we don't do those anymore, Mark. So we've upped our game at our company. We're only doing books we want to do now. So
good.
Yeah, it's so refreshing. It's like, okay.
And especially for certain nightmare things I can think of, especially one particular involving 3 clients.
I don't remember names like that, so let it go. But yeah. So yeah. Okay, well, we can talk about that all day long. Yeah, so that's great. What advice would you give somebody who's thinking about writing their own book?
First, have a day job. Second, prepare to suffer, because it isn't going to be. You could write the best possible book, and unless you have contacts in the marketing and publishing field, that thing's probably going to sit in your closet for a few years before you find some way to connect it to someone. That's my major problem. I admit to my weaknesses. I'm a great writer. I absolutely stink at marketing and PR. But
most good writers.
Be prepared for a long haul.
Yeah. I was talking to a book marketing publicist guy today, in fact, and he said no book worth its salt has ever been successfully done without an 18 to 36 month window of marketing. I mean, it does not happen quickly. It always has some momentum. It's got to, build up to it. So, for what that's worth.
Yeah, I wish I would have known that a lot longer than 36 months ago.
Well, just today's the first day of the rest of your life, so you can go ahead and start today. You got 2 books done. You got 11 more in the hopper, right? On this Maldene?
Yeah. Well, there's 13 of the Maldene books. I have a 2-book Maldene prequel. I have 5 books in my Cyberdon series.
Oh, it's another fantasy thing. Okay.
I have it's 6 books in my Inspector Flaatphut series, and I have about 7 or 8 in a series called Land of the Hive that I did with a co-writer who has since passed away. So that's now in my lap. I got all those written, and I still have in the back of my head notes for another series. I have a bunch of maps drawn up for a new world and everything else. I just got to get time for my stuff again.
The ones that are written, the ones you just mentioned, other series, are those published or just written in the computer? Where are they?
Those are already written. The ones published are the first 2 Maldene books, the first Cyberdon book, and the first 2 Inspector Flaatphut books.
Okay.
And those are all under my own personal label.
Got it. Okay. All right. So advice to writers: better like reading, you better love writing, you better have a day job, and prepare to suffer. Got that.
Don't be afraid to break the rules. There's actually, I have a list of top 10 best writing tips, which means, of course, it has 11 points on it. Just because 11th one there was a good one. The line I came up with was they say that a picture's worth 1,000 words. The goal of a good writer is to make 1 word worth 1,000 pictures.
Ooh, I like that.
That's why I put it there. It's like, ooh, sounds great. And I can even cite an example, like you say, day at the beach. How many different images come into your head? Now you add, the beach, 1890. You have an entirely different set of images with the person in the head to toe striped bathing suit, the little changing heads they had with Dick Van Dyke walking out, and things like that.
Yeah. It's very, very true. Telling stories so they're interesting and compelling. It's still an art form. I don't see how this is go back to science questions for you now. So, and then wrap it up. I had some clients in the, machine learning AI space. And what do you think that's going to be going when it comes to creative?
Um, Interestingly enough, I think last year I did have a client who wanted a science fiction story that involved AI, because he himself is into AI, and he said we haven't discussed this enough in the real world, so he was using a science fiction story as a way for that. In science fiction storytelling, artificial intelligence has been in it since I think almost from day one.
Right, right, right.
So it's just a matter of how it manifests. Instead of being some boxy looking robot that can think, it's going to be something more humanoid, because we know that the tech will get better. We've seen it happening.
My question specifically for writing.
Yeah.
Now, do you think AI will be able to be creative enough to write well?
Not unless we're talking a few centuries down the line. There are those
Like
writing tools. Yeah, there's those writing tools and a program to help you develop a new plot or whatever. But even with AI, it's only as good as the guys that program it. And we still have an imagination that we haven't learned to put onto a computer.
That's my question for you. So a lot, because I have a couple guys in the space, and some of them are pretty highly placed in the Fortune 100, right? So I'm talking to them, and I go like, hey man, I seen Terminator. This is a bad idea. They go, no, there's some good things here. Blah, blah. You said who the programmer is responsible for creating it. You can't. But at some point, if it tips where the machine learning can create that creativity, I don't see it 200 years. I see that if quantum computing becomes a real thing, then it can be more creative than us.
Well, quantum computing will allow things, to be done faster. So that problems that would take the age of the universe and the old computers would take like about 10 minutes.
Right.
That makes it more efficient. That doesn't necessarily make it more creative. Can it think of things out of the blue on its own?
Well,
and that would
where
be
does creativity? Okay, let's go to that then. Where does creativity come from?
I think philosophers have been debating that for millennia, and scientists will be debating it for a while longer.
I'm asking you, man. Does it come from our
creativity,
experience?
I think, at its core comes from basic self-awareness.
Okay.
Are you a self-aware sentient creature? And if you can pass that whole I think therefore I am, take the next step and go, well, if I think therefore I am, what do I think therefore he is?
Yeah.
And being able to imagine things beyond what you can actually see around you.
You ever hear any interviews with Sam Harris?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure who he is.
We'll talk about it another time. He talks about where thoughts or consciousness comes from, and he says something along the line. I can't do this very well, but like, you don't know what you're gonna be thinking 10 minutes from now, right? We don't know. 10 minutes hasn't happened. We don't know what's gonna happen. Something, meteor could crash, change my thoughts, or 9 or 1 minute or 1 second. He goes takes it really down to like, so if you don't know what you're thinking, what's gonna happen? Where does it really come from? It's a rabbit hole. You got to really just listen to one of his interview on Joe Rogan's podcast. It made you think, because Rogan's busting like, come on, there's such thing as free will. Goes, well, maybe there is, maybe there's not. It's interesting conversation.
Sounds like a challenge, because me, you say you don't know what you're thinking a couple hours from now. I know I'm going to be thinking about a story I'm working on for somebody when I get back to it.
You plan on it, but you might not. We don't know. I might change your mind right now. You might go listen to Rogan's podcast. I don't know. All right. So obviously I could say what's next, but I think I know what's next with what books you're working on, huh?
Yeah, like I said, I got a bunch of ghostwriting projects.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I got a couple scripts that I've been invited to get into with a company up in Canada, Dune Radio. They put me on their site as their official script guy. Yeah. And they know what I have waiting, and they're going to help me on trying to promote my book. And when the time comes, I actually said, Mark, when we're ready for it and have everything lined up, we want to be the ones to produce Maldene the movie. And went,
finally,
great, yay!
Yeah, sometime before you're 90, that'd be nice. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and if there's a movie of for any of my stuff, that of course.
Oh, wait a minute. How long is this movie going to be?
I was actually telling them going, if you can do the Game of Thrones approach, I'm probably better
Yeah,
suited for that.
it's got to be a series. You can't make a movie. It's got to be a Netflix thing for sure. Yeah.
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 And I think they actually mentioned somebody they have a contact with. No, they have a contact with who's that one comedian that owns a movie studio.
I don't know.
I can't remember his name. Something with a C or something. But they may have a contact there, and maybe somebody with Netflix. But
yeah,
they're trying to get some other movies going, and then they're going when we have the financing going. We want to be able to get some of your stuff going too. And I'm going, great, fantastic.
Did you see that thing I sent you about the metaverse with the characters and whatnot? Did you look at that?
Probably not in detail. I've been really busy.
I'm not into that thing, right? I'm not into virtual reality much, but from what I saw and what the company's valuation is, I can't deny it, man. And people are creating
that's the
worlds like you are.
Blocky Pixels.
That's the one.
Yeah. I looked into that briefly. It seems to be like a shared universe thing they have, where each of the contributors contributes something to the same world.
Yeah.
In that vein, I have a set of neighbors. She works for Activision, and he has friends in the company that did League of Legends. And he just sent them a copy of the first Maldene book.
Hey, there you go.
Going, hey, here's because they're looking for their next big project, and I already have a ready-made world. I could shovel tons of notes at them and going, here, I just get after work at them. So he gave him a copy of my book.
Part's done. Just make it.
And so he gave him a copy of the book, and crossing fingers.
The whole book? You don't have a short a one sheet on it?
He gave him a copy of the first book. The entire first book, so probably take him 3 months to read it.
Just you might want to create like a synopsis for someone to before they read it, just so they
Yeah, well, he actually knows them personally, so I don't know what sales pitch he gave at the time, because when he was telling me this, he was drunk. And I said, by the way, I gave him the book. All right.
It's my only thing I know about pitching stuff is you got to be short, because if you can't hold their attention. You read this book, they're like, no. They want to.
That's what the other one is going to be working. She's working. He's her boyfriend. She's going to work on a pitch for the appropriate person over Activision. And I told him, I don't mind having have to decide between oh dear, that offer or that offer. I don't see that as being a problem I would hate. So I told him, if you want to submit to both of them, on my behalf, go ahead. I'm ready for it.
Right. Good deal. Outstanding. Mark, it's great having you on the show today. I really appreciate you, man. You're definitely a mad scientist genius. You've got the look, you've got the brain. And hold the book again. Hold it Maldene again so people can see that book.
That's the first one. That's the second one.
Author Mark. There we go, Mark. It's sealing now. It's okay. You're automatic. See, your technology is picking up.
I got a camera that automatically follows motion. Sorry about that. I should keep it in front of my face.
All good, man. All right, Mark, thanks so much for being on the show today, folks. Don't forget to get Maldene, and go ahead and click below and subscribe and to get some free goodies from us. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is Doug Crow with the Author Your Brand Show.